I'm going to do a staged reading in honor of Mariama Ba. She was a Senegalese feminist writer, and she wrote, among other things, this book titled So Long a Letter, which my reading is also titled. It's one of the classic African feminist texts. And to give you some background, it's So Long a Letter is a very honest and intimate book. It's a book written in an epistolary format, which means that it is written in the form of letters. In those letters, the protagonist, who is a woman called Ramatoulaye, she writes a long letter, over 28 chapters, to her friend Aïssatou. Today, as a means of memory and remembrance, resistance and struggle, revolution and transformation, and above all, sisterhood and feminist solidarities, I am evoking this epistolary form, and I have composed a letter from Ramatoulaye to Aïssatou, which I like to think of a little bit as the 29th chapter of this book. So while this was written in the 1970s, I imagine my letter is what Ramatoulaye might write now in the 2015. I should share with you before I read my letter that in my view, and I've come across similar reviews, Ramatoulaye and Aïssatou are the same person. They are a twin image, flip sides of the same coin. In a sense, they are a representation of the inner contradictions that any woman who is rebelling against oppressions finds, that mix of a feeling, a sensation which is both liberating but daunting and scary at the same time. Aïssatou she's kind of your stereotype, emancipated African woman. She dared to get a divorce. She's a single mother. She moved to France, where she works as an interpreter. Ramatoulaye, on the other hand, is a revolutionary at heart, but she hasn't quite found her voice. She has dedicated her life to being the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect good Muslim. I mention this to say that their exchange is one between two African women, but really it's an expose of the inner workings of one African woman. I also tend to see this book and the letters in the book as though they were written by a mosaic of women, mothers, daughters, sisters, grandmothers, lovers, aunties. And it is in this last sentiment that I want you to think of my letter. So I want you to think that although it is a letter from Ramatoulaye to Aïssatou, it is also simply a letter from one African woman to another. Dear Aïssatou, Modou Fall is dead. I told you this when I wrote you last time. I told you that Modou Fall, my husband, who left me to marry our daughter's best friend Bintu, is dead. But I lied. Modou Fall is not dead. Even though I mourned him according to the miras, the proper traditional way, Modou Fall is still not dead. Even though he abandoned me, gave me no money, did not help me to raise our 12 children, and even though I lost all respect for him, I have not been able to move on and bury the spirit of Modou Fall. Modou Fall is alive. He is everywhere, not only in the obvious places, in the eyes of our children, in the diaries under my bed. Modou Fall is written into the garment of my skin. I have stripped myself of his love, of his name, But I cannot strip myself of my own skin. I cannot get rid of the mask of suffering that Mudufal has glued to my soul. Aissatou, you will, however, be happy to know that I have discovered that a woman is like a ball. Once a ball is thrown, no one can predict where it will bounce. I have been thrown, that much I know. I am happier, more true to myself today, since refusing to marry the only one poor suitor who would marry an old widow like me. I am happier, but I am lonely, and I wear my loneliness all too familiarly. Aissatou, although it is pain about my, well, not so dead husband that I have started this letter with, I am writing you about something much more significant and urgent. I need you to listen very carefully. We must do again that thing that we did that day. Yes, that thing, that day. This time, we must do it without our fathers, husbands, brothers, and even our sons. Too many of them have joined forces with the enemy. Their wish is no longer the liberation of our beloved continent, but the liberation of the men of that continent. Perhaps it always was. It does not matter, Aissatou. What matters is that we do this for our daughters and our sons so that they can know peace. I am talking about war. Because what happened that day they raped you was war. What happened when they denied you contraception was war. When you fought for independence only to remain a prisoner, that was war. When the apartheid government put you in solitary confinement, that was war. And it was war too when they crucified you with your own miniskirt and wrote you out of history. Sister, I am writing to say that sadly, the war has not ended, and it is time for us to fight. It may not be an evident war, not least because some of us are sheltered, and our roles as mothers, wives, and career women has thrived to the detriment of our social activism. It may not be evident because we have chosen to fight on the opposing side. But we are all paying the price with the heaviness of the worship of money, of widowhood rights, of arranged marriages, of wicked mother-in-laws, witch hunts, female genital mutilation. I confess, I am an African woman with anxieties, pains at old age, regrets about my poor choices, and worries about the transitions of our society to modern life. But I have learned that femininity is not docile, that there is a darkness to womanhood, a blueness, a mood indigo, a fury toward injustice. Birth and death, and the passions that are linked to birth and death, are in the realm of the feminine. Alertness, rage, revolution, freedom, these are feminine words, these are African words. There is no one voice for feminism in Africa, just like there is no one culture in Africa. And yet we are being asked to sacrifice our voices to protect African culture. Aissatou, what kind of culture are we being asked to protect? I ended my last letter to you by saying that my heart rejoices each time a woman emerges from the shadows. I shall end this letter by adding that my heart rejoices not only each time a woman emerges from the shadows, but each time she dares to go back in and drag out her kin. This is the war against women that we must fight. Until soon, Rahmatullah. Thank you.